In today's episode, we want to talk about optimizing your department structure. Yogi Berra, the baseball player, once said, "If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else." The same is true in business. If each person on the team doesn't know where they are going, well, you can complete the rest. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you. In today's episode, we want to talk about optimizing your department structure and staffing, beginning with how to assess your current structure and staff, then how to identify and make structural changes and staffing changes where they're needed, and finally, how to conduct ongoing evaluation of your structure and staffing so you can make changes as needed. Now, in episode 8, Setting a Client-Centered Direction, we discussed how to identify your client's needs, and now we want to talk about how to ensure that your department is optimally structured to meet those needs.
The first of the things that Rick talked about was assessing the current department structure and staffing. And if you are the new manager, then the first thing that you need to do is you need to understand what that structure and staffing is. And it will involve a good kind of things. We've talked about these before. You have to have your eyes open. You have to be willing to talk to people. You need to get out on the department floor and actually observe what is happening so that you can begin to learn what you need to know. You have to do this with no judgment. You're trying not to judge things. You're trying not to criticize things. It doesn't mean you're not taking information in, but as you're doing it, you're maintaining this no judgment attitude. But you're seeking to clarify and to learn things as much as you possibly can. And along the way, as you're doing that, you'll begin to sense where there are possible changes that you could make, improvements that you could make, sometimes options for new business as well. But the thing is that you're really in a learning mode.
Fred, I think it's good here if we just remind people that we've covered some of this kind of research in previous episodes. For example, in episode 3, we talked about the first meeting you have with your staff, and then in episode 10, your first meeting with your boss, and in episode 11, meeting with your clients. And these are all important sources for that information you're talking about.
That's a good point. But then you have to be able to make decisions on any necessary changes that you think might be forthcoming.
Right. Now, there's another situation where you're starting up a new department. So you don't have the kind of background that Fred was talking about. And there, you really have to kind of call on your own experience. I mean, probably you've done something similar, or else they wouldn't say start a department to do this. But and you need to talk to your staff and get a sense of their take on the situation, their understanding, and talk also to management and get input from everyone. And then you're just going to have to rely on your own instincts to do the first pass at a structure and staffing assignments. But you've really got to continually monitor early on what's going on and be ready to make adjustments because you'll have to.
Yeah, there's a number of areas that we need to now work our way through as you're looking at your department structure. The first of them is team alignment. And in this team alignment, do people understand what the goals are? Do they understand the priorities? Can they articulate the team goals? So it's setting the ground rules for the team. What it will do is it will help everyone to feel more comfortable that, yes, we do understand what the priorities are. We can articulate them. It will help people to build trust and solid working relationships with each other. And it will give you the opportunity to see whether or not, as people are discussing and explaining to you the team alignment, whether changes need to be made. And then you'll begin to discuss those changes, and sometimes there'll be disagreements among your people as to whether or not changes need to be made, and then you're going to have to follow them up and study them to see whether or not it does make sense to make the changes.
Right, and right on with that is it's so important to define everyone's role in the department vis-a-vis those objectives and that structure. You know, it's important that every team member has a clear understanding of what their responsibilities are in achieving the department goals. This defines in clear, specific terms the responsibilities of each job. It helps team members understand how their role fits in and how others on the team, how their roles mesh with the individual members. And you want to make sure that it's concrete as possible, and that it's clear and really understood and agreed to by everyone, so that they know what their role is and they know what their assignments are. But
I was just thinking that I had an instance not some time back with a senior person who was not at all sure that she wanted to change industries, and she was persuaded to do that. She went to a new company, and in that company, she had to immediately begin to understand the team alignment and the role definition. And she said, Fred, things were so screwed up that I didn't even know how many staff members we had, let alone role definition.
Yeah, I can identify with that. And sort of an ancillary to that is once all the roles are filled, once you think you've got the spots all accounted for, then it's easy to show if there are any gaps vis-a-vis the objectives of the group, and so that tells you if you're going to need to make a hire or ask to have somebody transferred into your group. And having a clear definition of the different roles helps clarify the necessary skills and abilities required to be successful in the open position, and then develop a clear job description for recruiting and hiring. And once the position is filled, it helps to orient and train new staff members.
Then we need to make sure that the working approach is clarified. So, and it's important to have agreement with the team on a number of things. Who will lead the team, how schedules will be set and adhered to, who will do particular jobs, how the group will make and modify decisions to get the job done. And this is going to require discussion. It's going to require, there may be some disagreement. There may be some conflicts along the way, but all of that helps to get clear, concrete working approach that's really understood by everyone. The approach has to provide for open interaction, efficient conflict resolution, fact-based problem solving, and results-based evaluation. The approach needs to be flexible to provide for modification and improvement over time. Then we move on to accountability.
Yeah, I was just going to say that all kind of leads into the whole subject of accountability, which there must be. That involves setting measurable goals, but when we talk about accountability, it's important. There's sort of two facets to that. One is every individual needs to have accountability for their own assignments. But it also needs to be made clear that every individual is responsible to a certain extent for the whole group's function. But each staff member has to be clear about what they're individually responsible for, but also to understand that they only succeed or fail to the extent that the entire group succeeds or fails. So they need to measure their own progress against specific measurable goals, but also be aware of how the entire group is doing. So they need to respect and support each other and watch each other's backs.
Rick, when we talk about specific and measurable goals, what you said is absolutely correct. We are going to go into goal setting in another podcast that will make what we were talking about specific measurable goals even clearer.
Right, but even here we can talk about how important it is for the manager of the group to set, based on the needs of the company and your client, specific assignments with measurable targets and outcomes, so that people know what they're doing, what they need to be doing, and to have concrete deadlines for accomplishing that. It's also good to set kind of stretch goals, if you will. So, what would results be that would exceed expectations or assigned deadlines? And further, when you can, you want to set sort of interim progress goals, certain steps that you can identify on the way to meeting the overall goal, so that you can ensure that the project is not falling behind. All too often, you get to the final deadline and suddenly everybody realizes, well, we're not there yet, we're not even close. Whereas if you know earlier on that things are falling behind, it's much easier to make adjustments, recalibrate things, and catch up.
The perfect time to bring those progress goals into play is assuming that you have weekly meetings with your staff. You give people an opportunity to go around the table and tell where they are. That's a terrific time for these progress goals to be brought up, and it will be a very clear indicator where people are having problems with them.
Right. And the other thing is how to coach someone when they're having a problem, when they're not keeping up. And I've found that the manager has to constantly be evaluating, is this person, do they understand the assignment? Are they taking too much time to do what needs to be done? And often it's not really their ability to do it, it's just they don't understand what the project really involves, and they've sort of gotten off on the wrong track. So coaching somebody like that when they're behind is important.
You're going to have to sit down and help that person to understand what it is that they're not doing, why are they falling behind, help them to try and understand why, and then help them to plan how best to spend their time going forward, so that they can begin to make up the ground. The next thing we want to look at is to identify and make structural and staffing changes. You want to continue to discuss with your team the department performance, good and bad, and to see whether or not any changes need to be made. And you have to be careful about if any changes, if you feel that any staffing changes need to be made, you need to seek to build consensus among the members of your staff, if possible. And you need to take the time to determine any specific tactical changes that you need to make. If, for example, more client contact is needed, then identify specifically how you would go about doing that. For example, how many times do you need to meet the client? What are the time frames? And you need to track that behavior. And if along the way you determine that you need to make staffing changes, for example, a staff member needs to be removed from client coverage, that's a very touchy subject. Rick and I have had that happen over and over again in the people that we've coached. When you need to make a change, you need to be careful about it.
Yeah, and it's important to be continuously getting feedback from management and your clients on the performance of your department. You want to always show that you're open to bad news. I mean, that's really, I think, one of the most important things is that people, your clients, your managers, should always feel that you're not going to be defensive, that you're open to being told things may not be going in the right direction. You know, what you want to try to do if you can, if you're given bad news like that, is just say, can I get a little time to think about it and come up with a productive answer to your concerns? And you want to regularly review goals and assignments and deadlines with your staff to identify any problems, as well as recognize successes and give praise for those successes.
In your meetings with your boss, you also want to keep the boss updated on where you are, what's going well, and what problems you're working on.
Oh, absolutely. That's just critical. You don't want to ever surprise your boss with bad news. Pleasant surprises with good news are great, but also to make sure the boss understands who's performing well, what is going on staff-wise, because they can sometimes provide you with good feedback as well.
No question. As you grow familiar with each of your staff and their relative strengths and weaknesses, that's going to help you to better align your staff in meeting the needs of the department as well.
Yeah, that's so true. You've always got to keep in mind that most staff members, the good ones in particular, are always thinking about their career path, and you want to be too. You want to make sure that they feel fulfilled, challenged, and recognized and rewarded for good work. They need to know that you care about them.
No question. And in summary of what we've covered today, we spoke about assessing the current department structure and staffing, and then once you have it, to identify any structural or staffing changes that you want to make, and then implementing them. And then as a continuing process, ongoing evaluation of the structure of the department.
We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.